My parents sold my childhood home without telling me, so I bought it back secretly and kicked them out after they tried to return. I'm a 29-year-old guy, and my childhood home wasn't just a place. It was the only constant in a family that treated me like a burden. It was a small, weathered house with chipped blue paint and a front porch that creaked whenever you stepped on it. My grandfather built it with his own hands long before I was born, and even though the walls were old, they held warmth. Every corner had a story. My first scraped knee, the kitchen where Mom used to hum old songs, the attic where I hid when my parents fought. That house was my anchor. Growing up, I learned early that love in our family came with conditions. My sister, Emily, was the favorite. Loud, charming, effortlessly adored. I was the responsible one, the one who never needed anything. The truth was, I just learned to stop asking. But no matter how chaotic things got, the shouting, the guilt trips, the constant favoritism, that house felt like a living thing protecting me. It was mine in ways my parents never were. When my grandfather passed, I promised myself I'd honor his legacy by keeping that home alive. Even when I moved out for work, I sent money every month to help pay the mortgage and family expenses. I trusted my parents completely, believed them when they said we were in this together. Then, one random afternoon, everything cracked. A message popped up from an old neighbor. "Hey, just saw a moving truck outside your parents' place. Are they finally downsizing?" At first, I thought it was a mistake. My heart started racing. I called home, but Mom didn't pick up. I called again. Nothing. By the time Dad finally answered, his voice was flat, almost rehearsed. "Yeah, we sold it," he said. And just like that, the foundation of everything I'd ever called home crumbled beneath me. I remember sitting in my car, staring at the steering wheel, replaying my dad's words over and over like static in my head. We sold it. Just 3 words, but they cracked something open inside me that I didn't even know could break. I asked him, my voice shaking, "What do you mean you sold it? Our house? Grandpa's house?" He sighed, like I was the one being unreasonable. "We didn't have a choice, son. Times are tough. You don't live here anymore. You wouldn't understand." I could hear Mom in the background whispering something like, "Just hang up, he'll get over it." That sentence hit harder than anything. I'll get over it. They'd sold the one piece of my childhood that felt safe, the only place that had ever felt like mine, and I was supposed to just get over it. I tried to reason with him, tried to understand. "Dad, I've been sending you money every month. You told me it was for the mortgage." He hesitated. There was a silence that stretched long enough for my heart to start pounding in my ears. "Well," he muttered, "we used it for other things. You know, Emily needed help getting her boutique off the ground." That was the moment I felt the betrayal twist from shock into rage. My money, my trust, was used to fund my sister's newest dream project, while the home I loved was sold off like it meant nothing. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. For hours, I just sat there, phone in my lap, staring at my reflection in the windshield. The house was gone, sold, just like that. But a part of me refused to believe it was over, because if my parents thought I'd quietly accept it, they didn't know me anymore. The next morning, I drove 6 hours straight back to my hometown, my chest tight the entire way. Every mile closer felt heavier, like I was heading toward a funeral I hadn't agreed to attend. When I pulled up to the house, there was a "sold" sign stabbed into the front yard like a knife through memory. My childhood window was boarded up. The curtains I remembered were gone. I stormed inside my parents' new rental, my voice trembling more than I wanted it to. "You sold it without even telling me?" Mom's eyes went wide for a moment, then softened into that fake sadness she always used when she wanted sympathy. "We didn't have a choice, honey. We were drowning in bills." Dad leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his tone clipped. "You wouldn't understand. You left. You don't live here anymore. I was helping you," I shot back. "Every month. I sent money so this wouldn't happen." Mom looked away. "We needed that money for your sister. You know how hard it's been for her since she started her business." My jaw clenched. "So Emily gets the dream, and I lose the only thing that mattered to me?" Dad's voice turned sharp. "Don't make this about you. You're being selfish." Selfish. That word. It was the same one they'd thrown at me my whole life whenever I refused to play the scapegoat. I looked around the small rental, feeling my stomach twist. They didn't even seem sad about losing the house, just defensive. Like they'd done something noble. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't about survival. It was about priorities. And once again, I wasn't one of them. As I walked out, my mom called after me, "You'll understand one day." But deep down, I knew I already did. The next day, I drove to the old house one last time before the new owners officially moved in. The neighborhood looked smaller somehow. The oak tree at the end of the street seemed less grand, the air heavier. When I stepped out of the car, the crunch of gravel under my shoes echoed in a way that hurt more than I expected. It felt like I was walking through a ghost town built entirely from my memories. The front door was half open, and boxes lined the hallway. I stepped inside carefully, even though I knew I didn't belong there anymore. The smell hit me first. Faint traces of my mother's lavender cleaner mixed with dust and old wood. My old bedroom was bare, the walls stripped of posters and paint. I touched the window frame where I'd once carved my initials, L plus E, the E for Emily, back when we still got along. Mom walked in behind me, holding a box of photo albums. "Don't look so sad," she said softly. "It's just a house." I turned to her, my throat burning. "It's not just a house. It's the only place that ever felt real." She sighed, shaking her head like I was being dramatic. "You'll understand when you have a family of your own. We did what we had to do." But her words rang hollow. She wasn't mourning the loss. She was already focused on what came next. When Emily arrived, she laughed and said, "Dad says we'll have a way better place soon. Bigger rooms, maybe a pool." That was the final punch. They weren't sad. They were celebrating. I didn't say goodbye. I just walked out the back door, down to the small tree in the yard, and ran my fingers over the initials carved there years ago. I whispered, "I'll come back someday." I didn't know how or when, only that I would. After that day, I stopped visiting home altogether. The drive back to the city felt endless, but with every passing mile something inside me hardened. I told myself I didn't need them, that I'd build something on my own, something no one could sell out from under me. I threw myself into work. I started small, fixing houses, renovating old properties, saving every cent. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was rebuilding homes for strangers while the one I loved was gone forever. But it also became therapy. Every nail I hammered, every wall I painted, felt like reclaiming a little piece of control they'd stolen. Years passed. I bought a modest apartment downtown, then slowly grew my business into a proper renovation company. I had contracts, employees, even recognition in the local paper. I thought success would make me feel whole again, but some nights I'd wake up missing the sound of that old porch creaking under my feet. You can't rebuild nostalgia. My parents only called when they needed something. Dad once asked for a small loan to help with taxes. Mom sent birthday texts that read like obligations. Emily's business, of course, thrived. Thanks to their help and my money they never repaid. I kept my distance. I didn't want to fight anymore. I wanted peace, even if it meant silence. Then, one evening, while scrolling through property listings for a client, I froze. There it was, my house. The same chipped blue paint, the same porch, the same tree in the yard. A new for sale sign in the photo. My heart started pounding. It wasn't just another listing. It was the house, my house. And suddenly, all the pain I thought I'd buried came rushing back, along with a thought I couldn't ignore. Maybe it was time to bring it home again. I must have stared at that photo for a full minute before I believed it was real. The same faded blue siding, the same crooked mailbox, even the same porch light that never worked right when it rained. My chest felt tight, like time itself had looped back to give me one more chance. I clicked on the listing. 3-bedroom family home. Great condition. Motivated sellers. Motivated sellers. Those two words hit differently. The price was high, but not impossible. I had the money now. More than enough. But this wasn't about buying property. It was about buying back a part of myself. I called the realtor that night. "Hi, I'm interested in the house on Willow Lane." Her tone brightened. "Oh, that's a lovely place. Are you looking to move in soon?" I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. "You could say that. I'm familiar with the property." Over the next few weeks, I handled everything through my company. Paperwork, inspections, negotiations, all under a business name. I didn't want my parents or anyone from town to know it was me. The idea of them finding out before I was ready made my stomach turn. This was mine. It needed to stay quiet until the right moment. When the deal finally closed, I drove there alone with the new keys in my hand. The lock clicked, and I stepped inside to the faint smell of old wood and sunlight through dusty windows. The rooms were empty again, but this time they didn't feel hollow. They felt waiting. I stood in the living room, whispering, "I told you I'd come back." For the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. But deep down, I had no idea that fate was already planning to test that peace, in the cruelest way possible. I spent the next several months rebuilding the house from the inside out. Quietly, carefully, and entirely on my own. Every nail, every brushstroke felt like rewriting history. The first day, I walked through each room, whispering apologies to the walls for what they'd endured. I patched up cracks, refinished floors, and replaced broken windows. It wasn't just renovation. It was redemption. There was something healing about the silence. No one yelling, no one dismissing me. Just the rhythmic hum of tools and the sound of progress. I worked late into the night sometimes, the smell of sawdust filling the air, sweat running down my neck as I sanded the floors my grandfather once stood on. It felt like he was there. Steady, proud, silent. I never told anyone. Not my friends, not my coworkers, not even Emily. When my parents called, I let their messages go to voicemail. I didn't want them to know I was back. This was sacred, my secret victory. I had the means to bring the home back to life, and I refused to let the people who destroyed it stain that process. By summer, the transformation was complete. The house looked almost identical to how it did in my childhood, except cleaner, stronger. The porch didn't creak anymore, the paint gleamed under the sun, and the oak tree in the backyard had grown taller, like it was standing guard. I stood outside one evening, watching the sunset wash the house in gold. For a moment, I let myself imagine what it would have been like if things had been different, if family actually meant love instead of obligation. I thought maybe this was the closure I'd been chasing, but then life has a cruel sense of timing. Because just as peace finally settled over me, the ghosts from my past found their way back to the door. It happened on a rainy afternoon. I'd just finished fixing a gutter when I saw a familiar car crawl up the driveway. The old beige sedan my parents had driven for years. At first I thought I was hallucinating. But when I saw my mother step out, clutching a worn handbag, and my father struggling with 2 suitcases, my heart stopped. They didn't look like the people I remembered. Dad's posture had collapsed into defeat, and Mom's eyes darted around like she was searching for familiarity. When she saw me, her face lit up in relief. "Oh, thank God you're here," she said, rushing toward me. "We need a place to stay, just for a little while." I froze. My mind was spinning. "What are you doing here?" Dad sighed heavily. "Emily's business went under. We had to sell the house we bought after this one. We've got nowhere else." I stared at them, drenched from the rain, standing on the same porch they'd once sold without telling me. The irony was suffocating. Mom continued, "We know the new owner probably isn't here full time. Maybe they'll let us stay, just until we get back on our feet." She had no idea that I was the owner. The urge to tell her right then burned in my throat, but I swallowed it. I wanted to see who they really were without the mask of control, so I nodded slowly. "I'll ask the owner," I said. "I think he might be open to helping." Mom exhaled in relief, and Dad muttered, "See? He's still a good kid." I helped them inside, watching as their eyes softened at the sight of the home they'd once discarded. But under that calm surface, something dark stirred inside me. They thought this was mercy. I knew it was the beginning of their reckoning. For the first few days, I played the part perfectly. quiet, helpful, unassuming. I told them the owner was a client of mine who agreed to rent the house short-term. They seemed relieved, almost grateful. But as I watched them walk through those familiar rooms, touching walls they once sold without hesitation, I couldn't ignore the bitter satisfaction building in my chest. Mom ran her fingers over the kitchen counter. "It still feels like home," she murmured. "I can't believe it hasn't changed." Dad laughed softly. "Guess the new guy has good taste." I bit my tongue, pretending to smile. Yeah, he really wanted to preserve what mattered. They moved into the guest room, the same room my grandfather used to stay in. Every morning, Mom made coffee like she used to, humming as if she owned the place. Dad started rearranging furniture, claiming, "It feels better this way." The entitlement came back fast. They didn't know they were living on my terms now. Some nights I'd sit alone on the porch after they went to bed, staring at the dark silhouette of the house. My emotions warred with each other, anger, pity, and a hollow sense of justice. I wanted them to understand the pain they caused me. I wanted them to feel it, the same way I felt the day they sold everything that ever meant home. One evening, Mom asked casually, "Do you think the owner would consider selling it back to us someday? Maybe once we're stable again?" I stared at her, stunned by the audacity. "I don't think he'd be interested," I said flatly. "Some things, once lost, can't be bought back." She frowned, not catching the weight of my words. As I walked away, I felt it, the moment before the storm breaks. The calm before the truth comes crashing down. Because I wasn't done yet. Not even close. It didn't take long before their old habits resurfaced. Within a week, Dad started acting like the house was his again, ordering me around, criticizing how things were arranged. One morning, I caught him in my office, rummaging through the desk drawers. "What are you doing?" I demanded. He didn't even flinch. "Just looking for the old property papers. The owner should have left them here somewhere. We might need them if we're going to buy this place back. Buy it back." The words made my blood boil. Mom chimed in from the kitchen. "We've been thinking maybe we can make an offer. The house belongs with family, you know." I laughed, cold, sharp. "Family? You mean the same family that sold it behind my back?" Mom froze, her face paling. "What are you talking about?" I took a step closer, my heart pounding. "You've been living here for weeks, acting like you're owed something. You want to know the truth? This house doesn't belong to some faceless landlord." I reached into my pocket and tossed the keys onto the table. "It belongs to me." The silence that followed was suffocating. Dad blinked, confused. "What kind of joke is this?" "It's not a joke," I said quietly. "I bought it. Every brick, every inch. You sold it, and I brought it back." Mom's lip trembled. "You can't. You wouldn't throw us out." "Why not?" I shot back. "You did it to me." For a moment, they just stood there, helpless, stripped of their authority for the first time in their lives. Then Dad's voice cracked, soft but angry. "You're punishing us." I met his eyes. "No, I'm showing you what it feels. Like to lose something you thought was yours." The room was silent except for the rain tapping against the windows, like applause for the truth that had finally been spoken aloud. The days that followed felt like standing in the eye of a storm. My parents barely spoke to me after the confrontation, but the tension in the house was suffocating. Mom avoided my gaze, moving silently through the kitchen while Dad paced the living room like a caged animal. I'd expected anger, but what I didn't expect was guilt starting to creep in, the kind that whispers, "Maybe you went too far." That feeling shattered the moment my phone rang. It was Emily. "What the hell did you do?" she snapped the second I answered. Mom's crying, Dad's furious. "You bought the house just to humiliate them." I took a deep breath. "I bought the house because they sold it like my feelings didn't matter." "Like I didn't matter," she scoffed. "You've always been dramatic. They needed help, and you're sitting there acting like the victim." That broke something in me. "Emily, they used my money to fund your life. They betrayed me, not the other way around." Her voice dropped, dripping with venom. "You're pathetic. You've always been jealous of me." And just like that, the mask fell. Every illusion of family, every hope for reconciliation, vanished. That evening, I handed my parents an envelope. Inside were 2 months of rent money, paid in full. "You have until the end of the month to find somewhere else," I said quietly. "After that, this house is mine again." Mom started crying. "We're your parents. How can you do this to us?" I swallowed hard. "The same way you did it to me." They packed slowly over the next few days, refusing to look at me. Watching them leave should have felt victorious, but it didn't. It just felt final. When the door closed behind them for the last time, the house was silent again, hauntingly peaceful, like it was finally breathing after years of being suffocated by lies. Weeks passed after they left, and for the first time in my life, the house was quiet, not the uneasy silence I'd grown up with, but a calm one, the kind that lets you hear your own thoughts without fear of interruption. I spent evenings sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the sun set behind the oak tree my grandfather planted decades ago. The same tree that had seen every version of me, the hopeful kid, the broken son, and now, the man who finally took back his peace. Sometimes I'd catch myself expecting to hear Mom's footsteps in the kitchen or Dad's voice echoing from the hallway. But instead of missing them, I felt something closer to acceptance. They made their choices, sold not just the house but every chance they had to treat me like family. I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. I started making small changes. Repainted my old room, framed the photo of my grandfather that used to hang by the door, and planted new flowers by the fence. The house didn't just belong to me now, it recognized me. Every creak in the floorboard, every gust through the windows felt like it was saying, "You came back home." One afternoon, as I was tightening a loose hinge on the front door, a neighbor walked by and smiled. "Feels good seeing that place cared for again," he said. I smiled back. "It's where I started. It's where I'll stay." That night, sitting under the porch light, I thought about everything I'd lost and everything I'd reclaimed. My parents taught me that love can be conditional, that loyalty can be sold. But this house taught me something different. You can rebuild what's broken. You can reclaim what was stolen. And sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't destruction. It's peace. As I locked the door and turned off the light, I whispered one last time into the quiet, "They sold my past, but I bought back my peace.